I don't know about everybody else, but I love it when a filmmaker can show you a subject matter, a part of the world, a field of study, whatever, that you might not otherwise be interested in inherently, but then you come out thinking, I want to learn more about that. I want to be a part of it, at least for a little while. And that's exactly what Challengers does. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Film Buds podcast. My name is Henry. This is now combining the daily episodes and the weekly episodes. This is episode number 562. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone out there. Thank you very much for listening. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe, like all that good stuff. I figured because of how much we released last year with the dailies, I didn't really have the ability to keep that up as consistently as I wanted to in terms of year after year. I know that this year is going to be a little bit busier for me than last year was, so I had to make some cuts and some changes, but hopefully it'll all still be very entertaining, informative for you all out there. And please let me know if you have any suggestions, comments, questions. But on this week's episode, I'm going to be tackling Luca Guadagnino's Challengers, which is on Amazon Prime currently, as well as reading some Letterboxd reviews of Challengers. And if you want to have your review read, follow me on Letterboxd on social media and let us know your thoughts on whatever movie we're doing that week. Then finally, I will be counting down my top 10 movies of 2024. If you haven't checked out our premium podcast show page, go to filmbuds.bandcamp.com. And we also have a website now, which is filmbudspodcast.com. All right, well, with all that being said, I'm ready to compete. Let's get into Challengers. And we do have a clip. Take a listen.
Tell me it doesn't matter. Tell me it doesn't matter if I win tomorrow.
No. You tell me if it matters. You're the professional competitor, Art. It can't be about avoiding my judgment. I'm not a nun. I'm not your mommy.
I'm just asking that you love me no matter what.
What am I, Jesus?
Yeah.
You can beat him.
What if I don't? How are you gonna look at me if I still can't beat Patrick Zweig?
Just like this.
All right. Challengers is directed by Luca Guadagnino, stars Zendaya, Mike Faist, and Josh O'Connor. A few others, but those are the main three. And the synopsis is Tashi, a former tennis prodigy turned coach, transformed her husband into a champion, but to overcome a recent losing streak and redeem himself, he'll need to face off against his former best friend and Tashi's ex-boyfriend. So I just got around to seeing this one a couple of weeks ago, and I had heard really, really good things about it. It was a favorite of the year for a lot of people, or at least like top 3, top 5. And I've liked everything that Guadagnino has done. He's honestly one of the most prolific and consistently great directors right now. He's had a movie come out almost every year for the last 7 or 8 years at least. So he's just churning them out, but they're all very high quality. They don't feel phoned in or rushed or anything like that. I didn't know much about the story aside from it revolving around tennis and being kind of about jealousy. And overall, I did like it. I think it's solid. Spoiler, it would not be on my top 10 list. And it would be, if I had to rank them, it would be towards the bottom of Luca Guadagnino's filmography, with my favorite right now being Bones and All, I would say, then maybe Suspiria. I'm really looking forward to seeing Queer with Daniel Craig, and then also they just announced he is doing the American Psycho reboot remake with Austin Butler. That should be very interesting. The craft, of course, is amazing. It's so well put together. It looks great. He has a great eye, and all of his movies feel very Italian. The score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross is amazing, as it always is with them. In terms of the love triangle, so to speak, with this, and I won't give away any spoilers really, so don't worry. It starts off with these two former best friends who kind of have a homosexual relationship, at least at the beginning, because one of them taught the other to masturbate, and they had like this weird night together, and then they both get infatuated by Zendaya, and there's a chance at them having a threesome one night, but then that doesn't work. But then she gives them both enough attention to where they're fighting for her for the rest of the movie, and there's this back and forth of jealousy and suspicion and all that, which I think works for sure. The main issues I had, and there's nothing glaringly wrong at all with the movie, but for one, even though I don't really mind that Luca Guadagnino's movies are generally longer, they're about 2 hours plus normally, because I'll always take a longer film by someone like that who has the care, the thought, the vision, as opposed to someone else or nothing. But for the story that was there, it was a little long. I don't think it needed to be 2 hours and 10 minutes. If it had lost maybe 30 minutes or so, 20, I think it would have been a little bit better, a little bit tighter, and those same ideas would have come through. The three leads are all great, both by themselves, and they have very good chemistry together. I bought the friendship between the two guys, and then I believe that Zendaya had affection for the both of them, but also kind of hatred at the same time. It was love and hate, as they talk about throughout the story. However, and I know some people really, really like this part of the film, but the final 10 or 15 minutes were the biggest detractor for me. I'm not against using slow-mo or having this very artsy build-up or climax, because that's pretty typical with Luca Guadagnino. There was so much almost overuse of slow-mo in this final match. There's a constant back and forth of one of them is going to serve, they're bouncing the ball up and down, that's in slow-mo. The serve is in slow-mo, then it will speed up, which that part I liked actually. There's one great shot of the camera being attached to the tennis ball and it revolves around the screen. That was really amazing to watch. But there was the same use of score in each sequence, so it felt, as it went longer, it got more and more repetitive for me. And if you feel differently, if you have a way to comment, please let me know. That kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. And then the final shot, which I won't give away, but there's a response to the end of the game from Zendaya, and she first acts one way, and then she seems to change her point of view or perspective right away, and it freeze frames on her face, and that's how the movie ends. And maybe it was meant to be like that. I'm sure. I'll just call him Luca. He had a very particular idea for that and thought into that, but it almost felt unusually awkward for him. And I'm a month removed and I still can't decide if I really like it or if it didn't work at all in that way. And it's unfortunate that that's the end of the movie. However, not a deal breaker, still a lot of other great moments and aspects to this. The intercutting of the past with the final game between the two best friends, I thought that was very well done and was never jarring, and it always made sense for where it was placed in the story. The dynamics between the two best friends, with one of them being the more clean-cut, proper, quote-unquote kind of guy, and then the other being the rougher, more unhinged one, and then Zendaya being the kind of shining light, the star of the three. The flashback to Zendaya's change in her life when something happened and that caused her to then become a coach as opposed to becoming the star that she seemed that she was going to be. As I showed in the clip, the scene that really got me, or one of the scenes, was when Zendaya is talking to her current partner, which is one of the best friends, and he's asking her, if I lose tomorrow against, my ex-best friend, are you still going to want to be with me, or are you just here for the fame, for the prestige, etc.? And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to be with you. I'm not going to love you anymore if you lose. And it's a very unexpected and really crappy response that someone could say to their partner, and also shows you the shallowness of everyone involved and of that kind of mentality in terms of only being the winner. That's all that matters. So, I think it's one that is very unique in a lot of ways, as every movie by Luca is. Even if they're not always perfect, they're always interesting. They're always something that you never really know what you're going to get, and that's very exciting and refreshing in this day and age. I think he has a lot more filmmaking left in him for the coming years, and I can't wait to see what else he does. So that one is a heavy 4 out of 5. All right, let's get to the next segment, which is Letterboxd review readings of challengers. And again, if you want to have yours read, you can follow me on Letterboxd, see the link in the show notes, or comment on social media, on YouTube, whatever. Would love to hear from you and include you in the show. First one comes from someone who does follow me already, and he commented, thank you very much. And I'm sorry if I say your name wrong, but Dr. J.M. Asopa, I'm sure I butchered that, so sorry. He gave the movie 4.5 out of 5, and he says, seductively scintillating, madly unsettling, emotionally riveting, and intensely captivating piece of cinema. This is Whiplash meets The Dreamers, but with a simultaneous unique standing of its own. O'Connor and Feist were brilliant, but Zendaya may have given her career best performance in this movie. Moreover, the technical aspects, such a well-balanced script, one of the most efficient usage of non-linear storytelling I've seen in a while, the equally balanced score, the tempo of which possibly mimicked the heart rates of the respective characters on screen, as well as the viewers, dare I say, and the camera work, whoa, especially in the final match. So, big fan there, and thank you again for that comment. Next one comes from Ayana, gave it 5 out of 5, says, I love the symmetry, I love the contrast and pace, I love that every interaction has the tension of an elastic band stretching out and snapping back into place. The camera cuts between the three of them in whatever configuration, but it's only inevitable that they'll soon occupy the same frame. All right, well, here are some not so favorable reviews. Jade Talks Too Much gave this 2 out of 5 stars. Says, spent the whole movie just patiently waiting for it to get sexy, but it never came. Total snooze fest. I was kind of intrigued by the plot at first, but then it all felt so aimless and unsatisfying. Slow pacing and boring characters. I don't even know what parts people thought were sexy. And then lastly, another 2 out of 5 stars. This is from Laura. Says, quote unquote, how much slow motion do you want in the film, quote unquote? Luca then responds, yes. I don't inherently disagree with you there. All right, well, thank you again for all those. Let's end off with the top 10 films of 2024. So I think this was a pretty good year for movies. There were a lot of blockbusters that I thought really hit. And then there were also a lot of great independent films as well. Feel free to drop your top 10 lists in the comments or let me know on Letterboxd. And if there are any on this list that you would like to see reviewed in a feature form, like I did with Challengers, I'd be happy to do that. I only covered maybe a quarter of these on the show, mainly because a lot of them I didn't see until about a month ago or two. Number 10 is Inside Out 2, which we did cover on the show, so you can check out that episode. I thought this was easily one of Pixar's better films of the last 10 years, probably the best since the first Inside Out. Yes, it's a sequel, but I think it still delivered a lot on bringing a very worthwhile story in that it incorporates the character of anxiety, because we are really in the age of anxiety, and showing kids especially how to understand certain emotions that they may be feeling, especially things like anxiety, which can happen out of nowhere. That's very important. And honestly, I wish I had had that when I was a kid. So great in that way, but beautifully animated, great voice acting, just a very solid, poignant animated film that I think I will definitely be rewatching over the years consistently. Number 9, Alien Romulus, which I did not review on the show as of yet. I was very excited about this one when I went into it. I like Fede Alvarez a lot for Evil Dead, Don't Breathe, don't love Girl in the Spider's Web, but overall I really like his style. Sure, it's in some ways a greatest hits of the franchise with certain creatures and action sequences, but for what it's worth, it's so well produced. The look of the ships feel very tactile. It feels very reminiscent of the originals, whereas now it's very sleek and clean and minimal. They really made a point of making it feel like it could have come out in the 1980s. I love Kaylee Spaney, who was in Priscilla and Civil War. I think she's one of the most exciting up-and-coming actors, and she's very good in this. The score is good. The horror elements, it's R-rated, and it really goes for not only the gore, but also use of practical effects and makeup. It's not too long. It is a self-contained story for the most part, so anyone could watch it and follow at least 95% of it, aside from the incorporation of one character from the original Alien. Number 8, The Fall Guy. This was a film that I love Ryan Gosling no matter what, but he seems to be in one of his primes of his career right now. Of course, he had Barbie and some other things, but it's rare nowadays that you get an original action movie. It's almost always attached to a IP or another franchise, or it's a prequel or spinoff. This is just a self-contained story that pays homage to all the stuntmen in Hollywood, because they are the unsung heroes of that world. They do some of the most death-defying, crazy things ever, and they never really get that much recognition, especially since we are in an age of huge action spectacle. So I was very appreciative for this movie giving them a spotlight and showing you the fun side, the bad side, the scary side. Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt are perfect together. It's not too serious, like it's not overly self-serious. It's not too plot heavy. It just takes you through behind the scenes of movie making, which is a thing I love in movies, when it can be a film about filmmaking. It's too bad it didn't do that well at the box office, because we need more of these, absolutely. And I did review it earlier on in the year, so you can check out that review. Number 7, Wicked. My wife and I saw this in the theater, and we probably will be reviewing this in full sometime in the next month or so, hopefully. But I have never seen the Broadway play. I only knew it was a origin story for the Wicked Witch of the West and of that world. It's a very epic film. It's over 2.5 hours, but I was very pleasantly surprised. It managed to maintain a sense of really grand musical and dance and spectacle while also having great performances, very good writing. Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo are incredible together, both just acting wise as well as when they are singing. It's also one of the more innocent kind of films. Like, it is serious at times, but it's so playful and witty. And it's also, like The Fall Guy, not a film that you really see get made with this budget in that way very often. And I know one thing people praise, and I totally agree, is the final act, but mainly the final 20-30 minutes are probably some of the most intense, dramatic, enjoyable, satisfying conclusions that I've seen in a long time. When, not to spoil too much, but when Cynthia Erivo gets the broom and the iconic song plays and there's that intercutting of the characters at the tower, like it had that wow factor to it, at least it did for me, and really left you with the best possible feeling coming out of it, and did make that long runtime worth it. Number 6, Beetlejuice, which we probably will review in full as well. I love Tim Burton, as I've talked about a lot over the years. I was very excited about this one, a little skeptical because it had been so long, and I was worried it was just going to be a phoned-in, nostalgic sequel that had nothing new to offer, and, et cetera, et cetera. But Michael Keaton is perfect. Jenna Ortega is amazing, and I can't wait to see what she does in the coming years. The whole cast is really good. It is also very playful, very witty, but it also has interesting new characters that come in. And as many people have said, it is very much a return to form for Tim Burton, who has been struggling a little bit over the last decade. I think this is bringing back a lot of the things that people love about him, that I love about him, with one being the humor. His movies have been more and more serious, or at least lacking in good humor, as opposed to if you look at early on in his career, his movies are so funny, including the first Beetlejuice. This one is consistently laugh out loud funny for me. Number 5, The Outrun, starring Saoirse Ronan, which I only saw about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I knew nothing about it other than it dealing with an Irish woman who's an alcoholic. That was all I knew. It is such a great, very unfortunately depressing character piece, but Saoirse Ronan, like Kaylee Spaney, is someone who I want to watch every single movie that she's in. She already has great variety. If you look at something like Lady Bird as opposed to this role, they're complete opposites, but she has other examples as well. There are a decent amount of films out there about addiction and alcoholism, but this is one of the better ones I've seen in a long, long time. It's really gripping. It's emotionally draining, but still satisfying. And it also has a great final sequence. The editing is incredible in that moment and brings a lot of the sadness to at least somewhat of a level of joy and calm again. The Irish landscape is beautifully shot. So it's one of those underrated gems that I would highly recommend to anyone out there. Number 4, The Bike Riders, directed by Jeff Nichols, who also has done Loving, Take Shelter, Midnight Special, a very underrated director and one of my favorites in the indie world. I had been meaning to get around to this one for a while. Came out back in the summertime. I am, at this point, a big Austin Butler fan. I love Elvis. I'm watching Masters of the Air right now. It's amazing. So that was a draw, as well as Tom Hardy. Like his other movies, it's very low-key. It's not a big action, heavy crime movie dealing with these bikers. It's a very slice of life kind of thing, giving you a perspective into this 1970s, I think, motorcycle club. And in some ways, it almost has a No Country for Old Men vibe of there being a certain point where the world changes and there's a certain kind of lifestyle, a certain group, a certain mentality that dies out. And there are a few left who can really keep that going because there are newcomers coming in and they change everything oftentimes for the worse. It's a really entertaining, well shot, well performed indie film. It's not for everyone in terms of the pace and the feel, but I think it's still really worth checking out no matter how you feel about it. Number 3, gonna be a hot take, I know, and I did do a very long review of it about 2 months ago, so please check that out. Number 3 is Joker Folie à Deux, which I won't repeat too much from what I said in the review, but to me it's one of the most confusing films as to why it got so much hate. I understand the marketing of it not being marketed as a musical hurt that, and people were, of course, surprised and let down that it wasn't just a sequel to Joker in the exact same way as the first, but I loved everything about it pretty much. Joaquin and Lady Gaga were amazing together. I loved the songs. It looked great. I liked the courtroom sequences, the sequences at Arkham Asylum. I was never bored. I have rewatched it, I think, twice since it came out. I am a big fan, big defender, and it's not in a self-aware or contrarian way. I'm not trying to just love it because people hated it. I watched it for the first time and I could not believe that people hated this movie this much. I know I'm in the minority, but I think it deserves to be at the rank that it is. Number 2, Dune Part 2. I loved the first Dune. Denis Villeneuve is amazing. The first film I saw of his was Sicario, and I was hooked completely and have followed his work very closely ever since. It's one of those sci-fi action spectacles that is so high level in every way. Like, it's almost boring to talk about. Like, great performances, it looks amazing, it's got great action, it's got great costumes, I could go on and on and on. It is definitely one of the best sci-fi movies, along with Dune Part 1 and Blade Runner 2049 as one of the best sci-fi films of the last decade or even the 21st century. If you haven't seen the first one, you gotta check it out. It's not overhyped. Neither of them are. I think they're both very deserving of where they are. And number 1 is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I love the Mad Max series. Fury Road is my favorite movie of all time. Just to put it out there, if you're not a follower of me on Letterboxd, that's my number 1, has been ever since I saw it. I was dying to see this movie. I wish it had not taken so long to come out, but it was well worth the wait. Everything about it, the character of Furiosa is so strong, so iconic, so compelling, and despite the hesitation at first of it being played by someone other than Charlize Theron to play the young version, Anya Taylor-Joy kills it. The action, no one really has a grasp on action the way George Miller does and how he shoots action, but he also has great character work and writing, great story work. He's a very underappreciated director, and I wish that these movies had done better financially, because of all the films that get sequels, this is deserving of having more spin-offs, of more sequels and prequels and all that. There's so much to explore in the way that he explores it that is forever interesting and exciting for me, and very emotionally gripping as well. All right. Well, that is my top 10. Again, let me know what yours are in the comments if you have a way to do that. Hopefully this new style, or bringing things back to how we used to do it in some ways, hopefully it's still good for you. I'm doing my best to always bring you the most interesting content and do it consistently as best I can. Make sure to follow us on social media at FilmBuds. Go to filmbudspodcast.com. hit that subscribe button, rating, review, likes, all that. And as always, thanks for listening, and see you next time.